And with that, we have StarTropics by Zero Count.
Hi everybody, I'm zerocounts. I'm joined here by Jamich.
Hi.
We're going to be playing through StarTropics for a little over an hour here. So yeah, let's go on a tropical adventure, shall we? We good? Any time? All right, time starts when I gain control of Mike, so I'll give you a 3, 2, 1 right around when that's going to happen. All right, here we go. All right, it's about 3, 2, 1, and start. All right, this is StarTropics on the NES. We play as Mike Jones, a 15-year-old baseball player, ace pitcher, who is going to Sea Island to visit his uncle, Dr. Steve Jones. We talk to a couple NPCs and then go to the main hut here to talk to the chief on the island. And the chief informs us that our uncle is not here. He has been abducted. And nobody knows what happened to him. Nobody knows where he is. So he gives us a weapon, which is a yo-yo, which is totally a weapon, and tells us to go into the nearby dungeon to find out what happened to our uncle. We have to go through the dungeon to get to our uncle's lab on the other side of the island. So that's where we're going right now. You'll notice that the game looks like sort of like an RPG, starting off with all the overworld and talking to NPCs and whatnot. But that's going to quickly shift once we get into the dungeon. It's going to feel more like kind of like a top-down action-adventure game, sort of like Legend of Zelda. All right, and then here we are at the first dungeon. So here we are, top-down perspective. One of the things that you'll probably notice that's a little different from The Legend of Zelda is that Mike is kind of on a grid, and so are all the enemies and everything else too. Mike can only move onto like single tiles, and sort of like a chessboard. And if he's going to move onto a tile, he has to move completely onto that tile before he can change direction and move to another one. So this makes for a lot of like planning and making sure that we know how long it takes to get to different places. If you're going to jump between tiles as well, you can only jump over a gap of 1 tile. If there are 2 tiles next to each other, Mike will just jump between the 2 of them. So we're going to deal with these enemies in here. Alright, now there's a bid war for whether or not I need to fight or skip the boss in the first chapter, the Sea Serpent. I guess I'll need to know what the results of that bid war are fairly soon.
You just let me know when you need it. I've got it ready for you.
Right now would be great.
With $80, we're fighting that boss.
Alright, so normally we skip Sea Serpent, but today we're going to fight Sea Serpent. Normally for Sea Serpent we're going to use some iframes to take some damage and just jump right through his sprite. But today we're going to get the rare occurrence of seeing us actually defeat Sea Serpent in this next room. Alright. And here we go. So we're going to jump over the fireballs that he shoots at us and just kind of whale the yo-yo into his mouth. He's going to dance around a little bit. This is all RNG. And there we go. This is the only boss fight that actually stops the music. So it's kind of unfortunate that we don't fight him during the run. Alright, so a little bit of crowd participation here. At the end of every single dungeon, we're going to be awarded with a little phrase here. Wow, you've done it. Thank you, Jamich. So at the end of every single dungeon, I would like everybody to say, wow, you've done it. If you're in chat at home, feel free to type that into chat at the end of every single dungeon. I'll try to let you know when we're at the end of every dungeon. Okay, so now we're at the other side of the island, and we found a character here. This is our uncle's assistant, Babu. Babu tells us that our uncle has indeed been abducted, and tells us that we need to take this code and give it to our robotic operating buddy Navcom here, and it will give us access to a submarine that we can use to get to the next island. So here we go. That's the end of the first chapter, and we're on our way to chapter 2. Alright, so chapter 2 is called Dolphins, and that is because in the very beginning, as we're traveling to the island, we are visited by a mother dolphin who asks us for help because her son has been kidnapped on the nearby island, and it is our job to rescue that dolphin.
I've always wanted a dolphin translator.
Yeah, Navcom comes pre-built with a dolphin translator. It's pretty nice. It's very convenient, actually. So we head on to the island and we talk to this lady in this hut, and she tells us that that there is a note in a bottle on the beach that she saw. So we decide to go and find out what is in that bottle. This is also where the game kind of teaches us about secret passageways and walls. So we grab the bottle, and it turns out that it's actually from our uncle. He's been captured by aliens, because video games. And he gives us a code that we can put into our submarine that allows us to dive into these wave tiles here. So we're going to go into the sub, give the code to Navcom, and make our way to the dungeon. Now you'll see that there is there's like a big heart on the screen there. If we were to go and pick up that big heart, it would give us an extra heart container. But we don't need to get it because at the end of every single chapter, the game awards us with however many big hearts we were supposed to get during the dungeon itself. So we're going to skip that. So now I want to talk about the buffering system in this dungeon because it becomes a little bit more important. So the way that buffering works in this speedrun is once you throw one input, if you hold or press down a second input during the animation of the first, the game will automatically throw that second input on the first possible open frame. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to chain a bunch of inputs together one by one, so that our inputs happen as fast as they possibly can given the programming of the game. We can also use this to take the number of frames of animation of different inputs and use it to our advantage so we can land on certain tiles like as soon as they're coming out of the water, or attack enemies at the exact moment that they're available to attack. So you'll see me like doing some weird things where I'm like jumping in the air and spinning and causing lag and maybe throwing a yo-yo where there's no enemies. Most of the time that's intentional.
See, we also got our first use of a sub-weapon in that room.
Yes, we just got the, these guys are being a pain. There we go. We got a baseball bat. The baseball bat, we actually just used it for the only time that we're going to use it as a weapon in the run. So that was an instance right there where I did a buffering technique to hit that bat on the exact moment that he would be available to attack. We're going to jump on these tiles here. This is all buffered movements that we jump as soon as we can. And it opens up that chest there and reveals a magic snowman. We're going to use that snowman during the boss fight. The snowman will actually freeze all of the enemies on the screen, including the boss. So we're going to do that against the boss here. This is Octo the Huge. He's named that because he's an octopus and he is indeed huge. So we're going to wait for him to come down and then use the snowman.
And coming down is Alt RNG, so you just gotta wait.
And we have to hit him 50 times. Now this is all buffered inputs. If I were to mash the B button as fast as I could there, it would actually hit him slower than using buffering techniques. Now, the actual speed of buffering is around 360 beats per minute from that distance away. So if you want to, at home, You can get your metronome out and set it to 360 beats per minute, or look up a YouTube video or something, and tap along with an NES controller on the B button at that speed, and that's the perfect speed for buffering against Octo. Thank you.
As a rhythm gamer, I got a few suggestions for songs you could use for that kind of practice as well.
Oh, I can't imagine doing a rhythm game at 360 beats per minute. Holy moly.
It's only 8th notes at 180. They get a lot more than that. Anyway.
All right, so we head out of the dungeon, and we find the mother dolphin and her son have been reunited. They thank us and show us the way off of the island. And then here we go on to Chapter 3. Now, Chapter 3 is, well, actually, let's talk about what happens at the beginning of Chapter 3. There's a terrible storm that tosses our submarine into a giant pile of rocks. So we can no longer use the submarine. We washed up on shore, and we need to walk to the nearest town and find some help. Now, Chapter 3 is interesting because most of the chapters in this game have 1, maybe 2 dungeons in them. Chapter 3 actually has 5. The first of these 5 dungeons is it's not very long. It's actually one of the shortest dungeons in the game, but it's fairly difficult because a lot of the enemies in here are super RNG heavy in their movements and what determines what they're going to do next. So these enemies here are called the dodos. They will charge at Mike if they see him, like in front of them. If they don't see him, they'll just kind of go wherever the heck they want. You can chase that dodo around that little island there for a really long time if you get bad RNG. These enemies here are called the flying monkeys, and they are one of the worst enemies in the game. They move really fast, they jump wherever the heck they want, they take 2 hits to kill with the yo-yo. So it's really easy to like miss a hit on one of them or get hit by one of them jumping towards you. Thankfully, we're not going to see them anymore for the rest of the game because those are the only 2 rooms that they are in. So we're going to do a buffer technique here where I'm just going to throw this bola and then jump across so I don't sink. There's an enemy in here called the Bonehead, also known as an ostrich with human skull, also known as nightmare fuel. This is the first dark room that we're going to see in the run. The dark rooms can be lit up by finding a switch that will turn the lights on, or you can use a lantern magic item.
Wow, you've done it.
Thank you. It's good to have that little positive boost at the end of every dungeon. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, so we found the town. This is Miracola. Miracola is a really big town with lots of NPCs that we need to talk to in order to gain access to the next dungeon. So if there are any announcements from the host, this would be a great time to make them.
Well, what do you know? I do have quite a few. We have $100 from Cell, ZC, and StarTropics. Hurry! Also, boo, cancer, boo. I got $25 from Surfin' Beard. What a great game to kick off the event. Good luck to Zero and the rest of the great runners this weekend. Run, run! Hurry, hurry!
Yeah, thanks, Surfin' Beard.
And we got a $50 anonymous donation that says, wow, you did it. You kicked off Midwest Speed Fest. Always great to see the speedrun community championing good causes. Good luck, Zero.
Thank you. All right, so on our way to the chief's hut here in this town, we find out the chief informs us that his daughter, Benanette, is under a spell, and she's been sleeping for a really long time. And the only way that we can save her is by retrieving a magic spell on a scroll from a mountain hermit on the other side of the island. If we get that scroll, the chief agrees to fix our submarine and allow us to, which will allow us to get off this island and go to the next chapter. So we agree, but not before first going and checking to making sure that Benanette is indeed asleep and the chief isn't just pulling our leg. All right, she's asleep. We can go to the next area now.
Nightmare.
Ostriches with human skulls.
Do, 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 do. I was waiting to see if we had a window to get that in.
There it is. There it is. Shoutouts to the Nightmare Ostriches with human skulls. Good luck.
You'll need it.
All right,
Wrong
so
game.
here we are in the second of 5 dungeons in Chapter 3. This dungeon is going to have a lot more enemy manipulation and things like that in order to get through here as quickly as we can. We're going to manipulate these snakes to run towards us so we can jump over them. We're going to hopefully... Yep. All right, good. That's pretty tricky right there, so I'm glad we pulled that off. This dark room is fairly interesting because you have to use these snakes to determine what path you can actually jump to. And then you turn the lights on, you can see that is indeed the longest path. We just picked up a new sub-weapon called the Slingshot. The Slingshot can do 2 damage per hit, and it travels a little bit farther than the yo-yo, so we're going to use that kind of as our primary weapon for the rest of this dungeon. Whoop, just got hit there. We got some backup health here, so we're going to take that.
Well, we don't use the bat to attack anymore. We did use it to buffer there.
Yes, indeed. The bat is an interesting weapon for buffering because it has a unique number of frames, so it comes in handy in some very specific places. We're going to eliminate a little bit of lag in the game by doing what's called a legless button strat there. Basically, when I jump on that button, I let go of all inputs, and that prevents the game from causing any lag from trying to guess where Mike is going to be jumping. You hear that we have the boss music playing. This game will kind of troll us sometimes. Sometimes the boss music means that the boss is nearby. Sometimes the game is just trying to scare us. In this instance, the boss is coming up. The boss in this dungeon is called Magma the Fierce. Magma is interesting because we don't actually attack Magma and do damage to him. What we're going to try to do is actually hit 2 buttons that will drop him into the water below, using the buffer or the bat to buffer there. Okay, jump over those fireballs. Hit this button. Wait till we can jump across here. I'm going to wait until those fireballs go by to preserve some health. And then Magma drops into the water below.
You mentioned that this game is trolly, and it's notorious in the first dungeon for having a bunch of secrets that start out good for you, and then at the end of the path you keep getting more and more secrets until you jump into a room that is instant death.
Yeah, I never said StarTropics was a nice game, but it is fun. So some people like to think that it's a little weird that Magma lives on top of a body of water, considering he's a fire elemental and all.
Oh, you've done it.
Thank you, I was waiting for that. But I like to think that Magma is like the island water heater for Miracola. So unfortunately, now that Magma has dropped into the water, the people of Miracola have to suffer from cold showers for the rest of their lives. Alright, so we just passed a castle called the Castle of Shikola. There is a fortune teller who resides there, who lets us know that they have lost their crystal ball in the bottom of this lake. So we need to go to the graveyard here and find a way to drain the water from the lake to retrieve the crystal ball. So this is the 3rd of 5 dungeons in Chapter 3. These enemies here are like the dodos. They're called bone dogs. They are named that because they are dogs and they are made of bones. We have 2 more bone dogs coming at us over here. Now, this dungeon is super trolly because casually it's kind of annoying because there are like 3 false exits in the game in this dungeon that will spit us out to the beginning of the dungeon and make you start it all over. Thankfully, we know where all those are. There is one that will be a little tricky to... we'll have to be careful not to go through it accidentally. It's never happened to me before, but, you know...
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. There are some invisible enemies in this room here. You You can't see them, but I promise that they're there. And that's why I'm doing all these weird like jumps and spins and legless buttons and things like that, so I don't take any damage. They're ghosts, and you can see them by using an item called the Rod of Sight, which we'll pick up later. Oops, extra jump there just for good luck. There's a ghost in this room that we need to jump over. Shoutouts to the Space Invader in the water here. So that staircase right there is a false exit. Thankfully we did not go through it. We took the secret passage through the wall instead. Now we have a room coming up, excuse me, that is a really long dark room, and you're supposed to use a lantern to light it up, but we don't have time to go get that lantern because this is a speed run. So we're going to do it without turning the lights on. Now there are sinking tiles in this room as well, so we have to make sure that we buffer this appropriately. Otherwise we will die. We should be good. Alright, we're through. Alright, this is Mr. Armstrong. He's a pain in the butt, but actually that was a really good pattern. Uh-oh. Oh no. This is not part of the game. This is not supposed to happen.
What can we do?
I don't know. I got nothing.
Well, as we investigate this, let me sneak in a donation or two. I've got $13 from... I've got $13 from non-binary code that says, "Wow, you've done it."
I sure did.
And I've got $100 from Joe Polito that says, "Claudio would be proud. Crush this run, Zero."
I didn't figure this out, yeah. Okay. Is it the cartridge?
It's possible.
That looked like a game crash, not
Yeah.
a setup crash.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I have a backup NES. We can try that one if you want.
Okay, I mean, we could.
Let's try that in. It's composite.
You want that, or? Yeah, we can go mute.
Yeah, we can mute.
And we'll take just a quick intermission while we switch out the console and get us back on track. Please consider subscribing to Midwest Speedfest or Cheering Bits. All Twitch revenue we receive during this event will be donated towards the Children's Cancer Research Fund. Of course, if you have Amazon Prime, that means you can subscribe for free. Simply go to your settings, connections tab, and connect your Twitch account with your Amazon account to get Prime Gaming. Meaning you'll get one free sub every month. All you gotta do is click on that subscribe button and then use the little checkbox that says subscribe with Prime. Best way to interact with our community and stay up to date with events is to join the Midwest Speedfest Discord. Type !Discord in chat or check our Twitch bio for a link. Announcements we posted on our Twitter, twitter.com/MWSpeedfest, and marathon VODs can be found on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/MidwestSpeedfest. If you'd like to participate in one of our marathons, whether as a runner, volunteer, both, we'd love to have you. Our online marathons are open to everyone, and those able to come to Minneapolis are encouraged to submit to our on-site events. We have our remote volunteer roles for every event and in-person volunteers for all events in Minneapolis. The best way to get involved with our events is to join our Discord server by typing !Discord in chat. And while Midwest Speedfest is just getting started, as a reminder, our next on-site event will take place at VGM-Con, Oops, All Zelda, in Minneapolis on April 14th through the 16th of 2023. We're excited to be working with VGM-Con once again, and we hope you'll come join us in April. Visit VGMCon.org to learn more, and keep an eye on our Discord server and Twitter account for more details as the event approaches. All right, and we have slain the nightmare fuel ostriches with human skulls that decided to crash the cartridge. Got it back up, and now let's go zero count.
All right.
Timer.
So, unfortunately, we're going to have to start back at the beginning of this dungeon. But you know what? There were a lot of cool things in here, so we're going to... that's not a problem. So, quick review. These were bone dogs. Called that because they are bones, and they are dogs. So,
Of course,
switch.
the
Go ahead.
The human skulls without ostriches.
Yes.
This game loves its skulls.
It definitely does. Lots of skull-based enemies, and also just skull-based environments as well. I mean, we're in a graveyard. All right, so I talked earlier about the Rod of Sight. There's actually a Rod of Sight in that chest down there, so if we wanted to use a Rod of Sight in this next room, we could use it, but like I said before, there is a buffering strat that we can use to get through here. We'll jump over that, come through here, and do a legless button on there, and we shouldn't get hit by any of the ghosts. There we go. All right, remember that really long, dark room that was super scary, and I was really glad that I got it on the first try? Well, we're going to do it again, all right? We're going to do it a second time, and it's going to be just fine. Shoutouts to the Space Invader in the water again. Let's not go through that false exit. We're going to buff our inputs across these tiles here. Yeah, so this is actually a good room right here. Like, if we were really low on health, we could take a death here, and the game would bring us back to 3 hearts. We're already at 3 hearts right now, so we don't have to worry about that. All right, second time.
Two for two.
2 for 2. Look at that. All right, so Mr. Armstrong gave us a not as great pattern, but we can just kind of hang out on the right wall there.
What do you know? A skull.
Yeah, another skull. Look at that. So that was an instance where the game tried to get us to think that that was the boss fight. It is not. There is more dungeon to be had. These enemies here are mummies. They take 8 hits to kill. It's really important to make sure that you get your buffering attacks in properly, otherwise they will run right into you. There are those invisible ghosts I was telling you about. We use our Rod of Sight that we picked up earlier to make them appear. I told you they were there. We have to kill the ones in this room as well. Now in this next hallway here, we have these 2 bone dogs, but then we also have to make sure that we pick up this sub-weapon here called the mirror. We need the magic mirror to deal with these enemies in here called dim hags. They're like Wizrobe type enemies. We have to reflect their projectiles back at them to kill them. If we did not have the magic mirror, we would not be able to get through that room, and we would have to take a death and make sure that we picked up the magic mirror before we got to that room. There are 6 mummies in this room, and we have to kill only 4 of them. I thought I lost track from there, but I figured it out. We're going to pick up these bolas here, this sub-weapon. We're going to use those against the boss that's in the next room. Hey, look at that. That's another skull there, Jamage.
Never would have guessed.
Alright, we're going to deal with these skulls here. Maybe. You can kind of determine where the skulls are going to jump by the way that they're facing. Alright, so this room has the boss in it. It's also a ghost, albeit a much bigger one. This is Maxie. Maxie's going to hang out at the top of the screen, and every once in a while he'll stop and kind of go, ooh. And we need to hit Maxie while he's, wooing. There we go. That was actually a pretty good Maxie fight. Happy with that. That can go for a really long time. And with that, that is the end of this dungeon. We're going to go into this next room, hit the switch 3 times, and that will drain the lake. So now we can exit the dungeon, grab the crystal ball, and bring it back to the fortune teller. This is also a really good time for any announcements that the host may have if they have them.
Absolutely. We've got a $20 anonymous donation
Wow.
that says, "Good luck,
Got it.
Zero. You got this." As a reminder, we do still have that incentive to hit to get the Big Apple in Chapter 6. Right now we're at 63 out of the $100 required. So get those donations in, please. I want to see the Big Apple and less, ostriches with human skulls. I've seen enough of those for a lifetime.
I want that apple too.
Yeah, we're going to want to see that apple.
I forgot to have breakfast today, so get that apple. All right, this, as I said before, this is the Castle of Shikola. The Castle of Shikola is a castle that only women are allowed to enter. So unfortunately, we cannot go into the castle at this time. So we're going to get the crystal ball back to the fortune teller, and the fortune teller is going to award us with a disguise that we can use to enter the castle. Once inside the castle, we will go and talk to the queen of Shikola, and she will award us with an upgrade to our yo-yo. So our yo-yo will become a shooting star, which is a flail type weapon with a projectile on it. So it'll move a little bit farther, or travel a little bit farther than the yo-yo, and it will also do 2 damage instead of 1. We can only use the shooting star if we have a maximum of, or if we have a full 6 hearts. Our current maximum is 6, so we're going to have to pick up some heart drops in order to use the shooting star, but that's okay because there's a couple at the very beginning of the next dungeon. Before we leave, we also need to go and talk to the head warrior of Shikola. The head warrior will let us know how to get through the next dungeon. We have to jump on a switch at the beginning of the dungeon 10 times, and then shout out the words abracadabra. So, when we get there, you know what to do. Say abracadabra. If we don't say it, it won't work. It's mandatory. Alright. Now we're heading over to the 4th of the 5 dungeons in Chapter 3. This is the crossing. Alright, here's the switch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Abracadabra! Look at that. Look what you did. Thank you very much. Alright, here are those heart drops.
Really odd how it takes advantage of the microphone and the Famicom's second controller, despite never being released in Japan to this
Exactly
day.
right. I like to think that if it was released in Japan, they would have used that microphone for that. Alright, so we want to make sure that we don't lose the shooting star now that we got it. But there's a lot of enemies that we're going to manipulate in this room, so hopefully I do this right. So far so good. These octots are giving me a very strange pattern. There we go. Alright. And that's the end of this dungeon. Really, really short.
I wonder what this text box will say.
Wow,
you've done it. Color me shocked.
Okay, and now we are moving on to the 5th and final dungeons of Chapter 3. It's been a wild ride, but Chapter 3 is coming to an end soon. This is the Mountain Hermit, the Mountain Hermit's Mountain, I guess? The Hermit's Mountain, let's call it that. Alright, we're going to manipulate these snakes. We only need to kill one of the snakes to progress. There we go. Now, we don't need a heart right now, so I'm wondering if the skull in the next room is going to drop a heart. Normally, the skulls in this game will only drop hearts when we don't want them, because the game's just rude like that. Nope, we didn't get any skull heart today. Those white tiles there will sink into the water as soon as you jump on them, so you kind of have to buffer your jumps off of them, or you'll go into the dip.
So that music, I don't know that we've heard it a lot. It tends to play in secret rooms or otherwise rooms where the game is going to give you something like a healing item.
Yeah, or a sub-weapon or something like that. Most of the time we don't actually need them, but it's good for backup strats, if in the case that we would. These enemies that are hopping around are called frappas, a combination of the words frog and kappa, because they look like kappas and they jump around like frogs. We're going to buffer our inputs there so we don't dive into the water with human skulls floating in it. Once again, more skulls. Here is the first instance that we're going to use RNG manipulation. By holding down and right on that middle tile, it makes those frappa enemies jump out of the water faster. We are going to see more RNG manipulation like that later on in the run, so stick a pin in that and we'll bring it back in Chapter 8. Let's see if we get a good pattern here with the Mad Muddy. Alright, these enemies here are called bullies because they're huge and they are really mean. If they run into you, they do a whole lot of damage. But we're going to get really close to one of them up here because it's faster to kill enemies if you attack them from really close, because the animation time on the attack is a lot fewer frames when you're really close to an enemy. Unfortunately, it kind of puts you in harm's way when you do that, but this is a speed run after all. Okay, we just need to find the secret passage in the wall here, jump into this geyser, and that's the end of that dungeon. This geyser will shoot us up to the very top of the mountain, where we can visit the mountain hermit and get the scroll.
Wow, you've done it.
Thank you. It feels so good hearing a crowd. Well, usually when I read that, I read it sarcastically, like, wow, you've done it. Like you got the scroll. Alright, with the scroll in hand, Mike runs down the face of the mountain as fast as he can and heads back to Miracola so we can wake up Ben and Annette. We say the magic words on the scroll, Bebob, Bob, Uma Uma Bob, Bebob, Bob, Uma Uma Bob. And Ben and Annette wakes up. The first thing that Ben and Annette says is, hey, is that a banana cream pie? Because she's like really hungry because she's been asleep for a really long time. I don't blame her. And then the village fixes our submarine and we are on our way to the next island. Alright, this is Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the only chapter that has no dungeon in it. This is all overworld. Also, we have a little bit of foreshadowing going on. We're going to go talk to an NPC in here whose name is Bait. We also parked our submarine in what looks to be the mouth of a giant fish. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Nothing's going to happen. We're just going to travel out to the next island over here. Oh, and we just got swallowed by a giant whale. Who would have thunk? Alright, so now we're driving around in a whale because video games. And look at this, we found a familiar face down here. It's our uncle's assistant, Babu. He got swallowed by the exact same whale. Small world. And he tells us that he was out looking for our uncle and got swallowed by this whale, and now we need to get out. So we devise a plan. Babu used to have a lighter on him, but he dropped it when he got swallowed by the whale. So we need to go and find that lighter and create a fire in the belly of the whale to cause it to sneeze, so we can escape. Another interesting fact about Chapter 4, and honestly one of the things that StarTropics is known for, is at the end of Chapter 4 when we escape the whale, oh sorry, spoilers, we escape the whale, Babu tells us that our uncle has a tracking device on him that we can track by putting in a special code into the submarine. And the way to figure out what that code is by taking a letter that our uncle wrote us and dipping it into water. Now, Babu is not referring to a game or a letter in the game. He is referring to a letter that was actually provided outside the game. So when you bought this game brand new in 1990, when it came out, on the back of the manual, there was actually a letter that was attached. That you could take that letter and you could physically dip it into water, and a secret message would appear on the letter along with the code that is 747 megahertz. So once we get out of here, we will give that code to Navcom, and they will let us proceed to the next chapter.
Should also note that the whale is full of fish skulls.
Yes, indeed, more skulls. They might as well just call this game StarTropics. So I've had people come into my chat before who have talked about playing this game as a child, and they would get to chapter 4 and they didn't have the letter, so they didn't know where to go, and they didn't know what the code was, so this is as far as they ever made it. I've also had people come into my chat and say that they got this far, didn't have the letter, and just guessed until they figured it out, which would have taken forever, I'm sure, but hey, that's dedication. So there we go, we put in 747, and Navcom says, alright, let's go. Let's go find your uncle.
I've watched streamers brute force that code. It's kind of hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Alright, this is chapter 5. The first thing that we're going to do in chapter 5 is we're going to go and talk to a fisherman. That fisherman is going to give us a worm. That worm will become important later. I don't know, Mike just like puts it in his pocket or something. I don't know, how do you carry around a single worm? Maybe he's got like a worm case or something, I don't know.
Carefully.
Yeah, carefully, exactly. So, here you go up here and we talk to the fisherman. And let's get some fresh worm hype in the chat, huh? There it is. Oh, his name's Hook too, by the way. There it is. You've got a fresh worm. Fresh worm hype.
Hype!
And now we got to travel back to the town on the island. This is probably a really good time for any announcements that the host may have.
Speaking of hype, we still have $37 left to get that big apple in chapter 6, and time is running out. Make sure you get those donations in.
Yeah, we got about I'd say like 8 to 9 minutes left before that's gonna happen. So let's get that apple.
Apple, 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 apple.
Let's go. All right. This is the town of Belcola. We have to talk to pretty much everybody in this town. They inform us that the town is named after a captain named Captain Bell, who helped save the island from a pirate attack 300 years ago by sacrificing his ship and parking it in the strait of the island so that the pirates could not enter the island and take over the town. Unfortunately for us, that means that the strait is currently blocked by a giant 300-year-old pirate ship. So we go and we talk to the chief, and the chief tells us that the great-grandson of Captain Bell's parrot, named Peter the Parrot, is on the island and may be able to provide us with a clue to sink the ship. So we go and we talk to Peter, and we give him that fresh worm, because as he says, no gift, no chat. So we provide said gift of fresh worm, and he gives us a secret message, which is do me so far, do me, which we are supposed to translate into notes on a piano. Do me so far, do me. So with that information in hand, we will head back to the other side of the island where we can enter Captain Bell's memorial. Captain Bell's memorial has a giant organ inside that we can play the music on. to reveal a secret passage to the dungeon of this island. I find it weird that all of the game, or all the like islands in this game, have like deadly dungeons in them. Is that a thing? Do islands have dungeons in them?
As far as the things that don't make sense in this game, it's pretty low on the scale, to be honest.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I won't worry about it too much. All right, here's the giant organ. So we play do, mi, so, fa, do, mi. There we go. If you mess that up, you have to actually exit the memorial and come back in, so it loses a lot of time. All right, can I get some Fs in chat? For the F room. F.
F.
All right, and here we are, Chapter 5 Dungeon. Chapter 5's dungeon is a little different from some of the others. It doesn't focus as much on enemies as much as it does on traps and environmental hazards. So this room here, we already hear some boss music playing because as we travel across the room, it starts to shake and all the tiles start exploding. So we have to pick up some hearts so we can get our shooting star and open up the door and quickly escape. And as we travel here, now we got some spears shooting at us from the walls. There's one right there. There's another one right there. And here we have a pinball that will bounce back and forth against the wall. We have to make sure that we don't get hit by that. And then everything's fine. We got our music back, tropical music. We fall into this pit, and then oh geez, there's more traps. We got spikes coming up from the floor. Oh, okay, we're fine now. We're fine. We're just gonna deal with all these rats, find these secret passages through the walls.
Casually, the rats tell you where the holes in the floor aren't.
Correct. Yes, that's the way to do it. Non-speedrunny way. And now we have more tiles breaking, so we have to quickly make our way to where the switch is. Now, there is a pretty significant skip here I'm going to try to go for, so I'm going to focus.
So we've got the bowling balls of instant death, so we're going to try not to touch that.
Okay, so far so good. Hopefully, way back. Okay, we're good. There are two more bowling balls of instant death that will show up later on. There's a green one and a red one. In the next room, we're going to manipulate the movement of these snakes that will charge towards us if they see us. Basically, we're going to have them charge towards us so we can start exiting the room before we kill them. These here are the last dodos in the entire game, so Mike has now successfully made the dodos go extinct. Alright, we're going to do a buffering strat here so that we don't get hit by this bowling ball. There we go. That is an instance where we use the mirror as a buffering item instead of as a weapon. We picked up a Rod of Sight earlier, and we know that that means there are invisible ghosts. There's one in this room that opens up this passage here. We're going to take a damage boost through these pinballs. There's a bunch of health drops in the end of this dungeon, so I'm not too worried about it. There's some hearts, but we're going to skip those. I'm going to throw an attack here, which is setting up a buffer so that we jump on that as soon as it comes out of the water. It's a 50% chance that we get hit by those spikes there, and of course we got hit by those spikes there. Alright, this is the last of the 3 bowling balls. The red bowling ball kind of has a mind of its own. It chases after Mike. So we have to attack it to keep it from squishing us. I'll give it an extra throw. We have to defeat these pirate ghosts to get through here. If we did not have the mirror, we would not be able to finish this dungeon. So we'd have to take a death and make sure that we picked up the mirror. And this is the final room here. We're going to go and hit this switch 3 times. That's going to open up this dam and have the water activate this pulley system, which will pull the ship under the water. And then that'll allow us to get through the strait. Now we will show our respect for the sinking ship by throwing a salute. Let's get your 07s in chat. All right. Thank you.
Wow, you've done it.
Wow, you've done it.
You sure have, Mike.
You've really done it this time.
You sank a 300-year-old pirate ship artifact. Way to go, Mike. And with that, that is the end of Chapter 5. So I guess now is a good time to find out if we have met the incentive for the Big Apple.
Well, thanks to a $37 donation by non-binary code that says some kind of big apple, let's see that apple.
All right, we're going to go and get the Big Apple. Let's get some Big Apple hype. So this is Chapter 6. It's a kind of like an archipelago of islands and a big water maze that we have to find the tile that we need to dive into to find out where our uncle is. There's a lot of like side paths and towns and NPCs that you can talk to, and one of the items that you can find is the Big Apple. So we're going to go down here and go onto this island, and at first glance the Big Apple kind of looks like a big heart, but it's not. It's a Big Apple. So we're going to pick it up, and you've got a Big Apple. It's delicious, but nothing happens. That's it. That's the Big Apple. Thank you very much for all the donations towards the Big Apple. I hope it was worth it. This chapter is honestly the developers had a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of really like funny dialogue and quips from the NPCs on these various islands. So if you're ever playing this game casually, just hang out here for a while. And honestly, it's a way that the game gives you something to do while you're trying to traverse this maze. So it kind of serves a purpose in a way. But honestly, for the speedrun, it just slows us down and gives us a little giggle. Alright, so we know the proper way to get through this maze. So we're going to go through here. And then once we come up from the water, Navcom is going to spit some coordinates at us. And those coordinates are how far away we are from where our uncle is. So we don't want Navcom to give us any more coordinates. So we pilot our way through here in a specific way so that Navcom no longer gives us any coordinates. And there's the spot. All right, you ready for this? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this blindfolded. So I'm gonna do this dungeon blindfolded.
I'm gonna help out and make sure that he's blindfolded.
That's the first one. Okay, that's the next one. We made it. Oh my gosh. Whew. Frame perfect and blindfolded. All right, here we are in the first real dungeon of Chapter 6. Chapter 6 gets a little bit more tricky with the types of enemies that we have. There are a bunch of different cool enemies and strats that we do here. We just picked up an item called the Anklet. The Anklet not only turns Mike orange, but also allows him to jump over 2 tiles instead of 1. Unfortunately, it only works in the room that we pick it up in, so now he is back to being blue. Now, in this next room, I'm going to set up a damage frame so that I can reach that top right octot. Let's see if it works first. All right, there we go. From that distance, you can only hit that octot every other frame. So by taking that intentional damage and buffering your inputs up to the top right octot, it guarantees that you're going to hit that octot on the proper frame. It's honestly one of my favorite tricks in the game, just because like you don't really see what's going on unless you kind of know the mechanics of the game. Alright, so this is the first boss of Chapter 6. This is Turboss. Turboss is just a reskin of Octo the Huge. So we're going to wait for Turboss to come down at us here, hopefully. Alright, one cycle, excellent. Alright, and then we're going to come out here. And this dungeon actually has 2 bosses in it.
We get the wonderful fake victory music.
Yes, fake victory music, and watching people play this casually for the first time when they get to this point, they're just like, what? I thought I'd finished this. Alright, so we have a little secret room here with some secret entrances. We need to use all these entrances, well, I guess except for the one that they actually show us. One to open up the door, and then one to gain access to this sub-weapon over here, which is called the horse hides or the baseballs. The horse hides actually only damage the boss of the dungeon, so we don't want to use it until we get there. Now I'm going to try to do a buffering strat in this room so I don't take any damage from those fireballs. Let's see what happens. So far, so good. I hit this one 2 times, then we're going to use these cleats that we just picked up. There we go. Now the cleats will attack all enemies on the screen from where you use them. So like with these mummies here. We'll just clean those up. And then the next room in the dungeon is where the boss is. This boss is named Broken Joe. Broken Joe is basically a carnival game. We're going to wait for Joe to open his mouth, and then we're going to toss these baseballs inside. There we go, we got 1 cycle. Awesome. Give him a couple of kicks just for good measure.
Take that.
That's the end of that dungeon.
Wow, you've done it.
Look at that. Way to go, Mike. Really pulling it off for the people. Okay. So, there's a bit of a maze here. If you go the other direction, you can actually find a big heart. But as I said earlier, we don't worry about picking up the big hearts because the game will award us with them at the end of every chapter. We find this giant bowling ball type thing. It's like a giant meteor with 3 cube-shaped holes. And also a message, but it's in a language that Mike is not able to read, so we just kind of leave it. This is the second dungeon of Chapter 6, and it's the first dungeon that has a secret passageway in the entrance. Casually, there's a way that we're supposed to like figure out that there is a way to get over here, but we know where to go. Oh, that bat totally dodged my hit. We have a new sub-weapon here called the Asterisk. It's basically a ninja star that splits into 2 after you hit the button a second time after throwing it. Makes for some pretty cool strats for dealing with these enemies. There we go. Pause here. That. Oh, jeez. Okay. Just barely dodged getting hit by that fuzzball at the last possible second. If you get hit by those fuzzballs, they just like in Zelda, they prevent you from attacking for a little while, so not good. So Chapter 6 also has not 1, not 2, but 3 bosses in it. This is the first of those bosses. This is a clay doll. Get really close to it and just mash away. Sorry, buffer away. If you run into the clay doll, it deals lethal damage to you, so you want to make sure that your buffering is done appropriately. Otherwise, you'll be starting this dungeon over. These enemies are called Rockies. You can only attack them when they appear on the right or left side of the screen. We move over to the left or right, depending on where they show up, so that they don't have to travel so far across the screen. Oh, there we go. And one more. There we go. Don't need any of those health drops because miraculously we are at full health. This room seems really scary with the fuzzballs and all those enemies, but we just go through the wall.
And just nope out and leave.
That's right. Alright, pick up this potion. And here is the second boss. These are 2 clay dolls. Ooh. There we go. And now the game does not rest. It throws the third boss at us right away. So in this room we have the twin Sumochos. We are going to use the asterisk to deal with them quickly. Maybe? There we go. Counting is hard sometimes. 0 counts, no counting. That's, you know.
Wow, you've done it.
Sure did, thank you. That is the last dungeon of Chapter 6. So we have a little ways to walk here before we find a familiar face. This is probably a good time to also talk about, you may have noticed that at the start of every single chapter, no matter how much health you have, at the end of the previous chapter, the game only starts you out with 3 hearts. So even if we would have had full health here, it wouldn't have made any difference, because the next chapter is going to start us with 3. And here we find someone who looks just like our father. It's because it's our uncle. We found our Uncle Steve, and this is where the game gets super weird, as if it wasn't weird already. Our uncle confirms that he was indeed abducted by aliens, and he just escaped their spaceship, and he found a meteor with 3 cube shapes missing from it. And he found out that those magic cubes were stolen by this alien race and used to power their ship. And in the process, they are trying to defeat this race of aliens called the Argonians. And now, I guess it's our job to defeat the aliens and retrieve the 3 magic cubes, because video games. So now we're in a spaceship.
Naturally.
Yep.
As one does.
I guess this is the star part of StarTropics, right? So this is the first dungeon of Chapter 7, probably one of the most difficult in the entire run. We call it the bottleneck because it notoriously kills many, many speedruns. High reset point. So I'm going to focus here and try not to take any damage. Or not too much damage. We want to have the shooting star at the boss. No way. No damage. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is why we want the shooting star, because these enemies here take 2 hits to kill with the yo-yo, and they move really fast, so killing them with the yo-yo is really, really tough. This is the boss of this dungeon. These are the jetpack jumpers. Wow, they're going to make it really easy on me. Their hitboxes are fairly wide. You can actually hit them when they're like in the column next to you. That was the best Dungeon 7-1 I've ever had. That was awesome.
Wow, you've done it.
All right, so in the end, or at the end of this dungeon, we navigate our way through these maze of staircases, and we come across the first of the 3 magic cubes. The magic cubes, or this first magic cube, when we pick it up, we feel power flow through our weapon. And it takes our shooting star and turns it into a supernova. The supernova can only be used if you have 11 full hearts, but it does 3 damage instead of the shooting star's 2, and it can travel across the entire screen, so it's really, really helpful. We're going to try to hang on to it as best we can in this dungeon because there are a lot of enemies that take a lot of hits, so every extra hit, or every extra bit of damage helps. This is also a really good time for any announcements that the host may have.
Unfortunately, no donations right at this moment, but let's talk about the charity that we're supporting. The Children's Cancer Research Fund supports the brightest scientists whose ideas make the greatest impact for children with cancer. Work closely with some researchers to fund innovative new projects quickly so that promising new discoveries can continue uninterrupted. The researchers share findings with over 9,000 experts across the globe, collaborating with others to accelerate those discoveries. Because childhood cancer affects the whole family and community, they also fund quality of life services that enhance healing and care. Learn more at childrenscancer.org.
All right, we're going to be coming up to a new item that we haven't seen yet. This is called Vitamin X, also known in the StarTropics community as space drugs. We picked this item up, and it pushes Mike's health way past its limits. It puts us up to 22 full hearts, and then it slowly takes away half a heart every couple seconds. This is why we get the Vitamin X, because they're out for blood. Alright, we have a new weapon here as well called the shield gun, which does 4 damage for every single attack. So we're going to use it to deal with this boss super fast. There we go. And now we're heading towards the final boss of Chapter 7, Asteroid. You want to talk about the E-tiles here?
Yep, so we're coming up on a pattern where there's or a section where there's some tiles that will damage Mike if he walks over them. Zero's going to set up a buffer such that he walks over the tiles on the exact frame they are transitioning, which causes him to not take any damage. Now, if you do this casually, you're expected to jump between the 3 different rows, but we could just walk right through. And now a little more focused time for the boss, which we don't kill the boss by dealing damage. We're trying to knock it into a pit and rip the floor out from underneath it.
There we go.
Looks like we got it. Down into the circuitry it goes.
And that is the end of that dungeon. Oh, well, first we need to wait for that. It's a bit of a troll right there.
Wow, you've done it.
We got one more chapter ahead of us. Alright, I'm going to make my way through the overly long maze-like hallways here and make my way to the second of the 2 magic cubes. This is the last moment in the run where we can have any announcements, so if there are any, feel free.
I actually have a $10 donation from Nintendo Natalie with no comment. Thank you so much for your donation. As a reminder, we do have the incentive open for Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle Any Percent by Jamhitch, who's sitting right there on your screen, to play the secret levels. We are currently at 37 out of the $100 required. So let's get your donations in.
Let's go.
I routed those just for you, so make sure you get those donations in.
Alright, so we just picked up the second of the 3 magic cubes. This magic cube, we feel a strange power flow within us. And it actually fills up our hearts all the way to 22 hearts. But as I described earlier, at the beginning of every single chapter, you are started with 3 hearts, so they gave us 22 hearts just to take them away. So the aliens have now figured out what's going on. They caught wind of us trying to infiltrate their plans, so they launched their spaceship into the air, and now we're in space. And we have to take down their fearless leader, the Prime Invader Zoda. Now, there was something I told you to stick a pin in during Chapter 3, so now is the time to take that pin out, and we're going to talk about RNG manipulation a little bit more. The first boss fight, the first of 3 boss fights in Chapter 8, involves some RNG manipulation, because the boss can either have a head appear or a hand appear. We can't damage the hands, but we can damage the head. We need the head to appear 4 times to defeat it. So what we do is we are going to quick grab this gun first. And then we're going to, oh, there's a hand. We're going to hold down. And what that does is it takes the 40%, or it changes the chance of a head appearing from like roughly 40% to around 70%. So it's definitely worth doing, albeit it doesn't always work all the time. But before we discovered that trick, it would not be uncommon for people to have like 10 plus hands appear at this point. And that can add a lot of time to your runs. The average amount of hands that show up with the manipulation is usually like between 0 and 5.
And we can only deal 1 damage per time the head appears, which is why we weren't trying to shoot him over and over again.
Exactly.
And now they give us a health refill.
Yes, we got some vitamin X to fill our health all the way up.
And this kind of quasi side-scroller thing, another thing that Zelda 1 did way back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so we're coming up to the second of the 3 bosses. This is going to be the ship's reactor. The ship's reactor has a shield around it. We want the shield to drop so we can attack it. But the game will throw aliens and spike balls at us while we do it. So we're going to kind of deal with them as best we can. Look at that, 1 cycle. Let's go. Alright, we are heading to the final boss of the game. This is Zoda's final form, Zoda X. Now, time for the run is actually on the death animation of Zoda. So I'm going to focus during the fight, and I'll explain why that is at time. If Zoda runs into us, it is an instant death, so I don't want to jinx it or anything, but want to keep you informed. And that's time. So real quick, the reason why we do time there is because there is a uncontrollable glitch that if Zoda doesn't spit out any of those little Zoda spawns, it actually causes the game to skip to the credits, and it skips the entire end sequence of the game. And thankfully that didn't happen because he spit out some Zoda spawns, and yeah. But we're not going to watch the rest of this game because the rest of the ending. So if you want to see the ending, feel free to play the game casually yourself or learn the speedrun. So yeah, I've been zerocounts. I just want to give some quick shout outs to the StarTropics community. Y'all are very awesome, very passionate speedrunners. If you want to learn this game, go to the speedrun.com page for StarTropics. You can gain access to the Discord. And shout outs to all the zerocounts gaming buddies who showed up today. And thank you to 2DCon and Midwest Speedfest for inviting me to show off this game. So, thank you, everybody. And thanks to Jamich as well for the commentary.
two of us will actually be back here in 2 more runs.
That's
so
right.
make sure to stick around until and through then.